Okay, last time in nuclear physics, we practiced questions from the nuclear reactor. Plus, we also practice the topic from the questions from the previous topic, half-life and the number of atoms, number of protons, number of nucleons, like that. And today, we need to add one more topic in this chapter, which is very basic. You don't need to learn that topic in very much detail. They will not ask about so much detail for that topic. But that concept is also important to know. For example, in the previous topic, we were talking about alpha, beta, gamma, this type of radiation. And in question, we also observe it is written like radiations can be detected by the detector. So, what type of detector we have to use to detect alpha, beta, or gamma radiations? So, there are two types of radiation. Oh, sorry, there are two type of detector in our syllabus. The first one is GM tube in short, or we can say Giger molar tube. And the second one is Wilson cloud chamber. So these are two different type of detector that helps you to detect alpha, beta, or gamma radiations coming out from the radioactive material. Okay. And working is also mentioned in this slide for GM tube. Right now we are talking about GM tube. But again, like in your exam question, they will not ask about detailed working of this detector. Okay. So basically what happens in this detector, a GM tube works on the principle of ionization effect. So this concept is important. If they ask, let's suppose that on which principle GM tube work or how GM tube works, so you can just simply mention it works on the principle of ionization effect. Okay. And as the radiation enter the tube, they ionize the argon gas inside it into the argon ions and electron. So basically there is argon gas, and when the radiation enters into the tube, so it converts that gas into argon ions and electrons. Because you know about ionization process, ionization is to decay electrons, sorry, to lose electron or to gain electrons. Okay, so this is the process of ionization depending upon the material. Let's suppose if element is losing electrons, so there will be positive charge on the element. But if element is like gaining electrons from other, so there will be negative charge on it, right? Because the element is now gaining electron from the other, so there will be more number of electrons. So the first process is very simple. It is working on ionization. So this is general overview of GM tube. It works on the ionization process. And in ionization process, gas argon ionizes into argon ions and electrons. So this is the simple concept of GM tube. They will not ask about a complete process to write down the whole process of this GM tube. This is for your explanation. Like if you want to read how it actually works, so this paragraph helps you to further add the detail in this counter. So a potential is established. Potential means voltage. So voltage is established. This is voltage. Because in the diagram, you can see there is positive and negative charge. So this is actually potential. Established inside the tube, and the ions and electrons are accelerated toward their opposite poles. Further ionization is achieved during acceleration. So in this way, detectors can detect alpha, beta, or gamma radiations because of ionization process. But again, they will not ask about this whole working. Only the summary of this GM tube is very simple. It works on ionization, and we are using argon gas, and argon gas ionizes into the argon ions and electrons. So in this way, this GM tube works to detect alpha, beta, and gamma radiations. Okay. And finally, you will get numbers on the screen that how many count rates are there from a specific type of radiation. Okay. So this detector helps you to count the number of count rates or the number of decay per second or decay per minute from the radioactive material. Okay. And the second type of detector is to detect the path or the traces of alpha, beta, and gamma radiations, because this helps you to count the number, like how many radiations are there per second or per minute emitting out from the any specific element. But another detector we are using, that is called Wilson cloud chamber. So Wilson cloud chamber means it depends upon the same type of process, but we are using different element in this. We are using the chamber consists of air with vapors of alcohol, is cold enough that it becomes saturated. Okay. So basically, it is simply like, let's suppose if there is a powder on the floor and you are walking on it, so definitely you leaves your foot mark because there is a powder on the floor, and because of that powder, you actually leaves your foot mark on the floor. So in the same way, there is a air in the chamber with vapors of alcohol that is cold enough so it becomes saturated. So definitely when alpha, beta, gamma radiations pass through it, so because of that vapors of alcohol with air in the chamber, alpha, beta, or gamma leaves their traces, and you will get different forms of traces. For example, this is the first one. This is one type of trace. This is another, and this is another. So there are three types of different traces we get from this Wilson cloud chamber. The first one is for alpha particle. Okay. And these traces are short and straight. Because we know alpha particles are heavy and they are not able to travel through long distance. So that's why we are getting uh, short and straight traces for alpha. Secondly, we have long traces and those are completely curvy tracks. Okay. So we are getting long curvy tracks. Okay. And in the third one, there is like gap between the traces, or these are curvy tracks but broken. Okay. So we can say short and broken, curvy tracks. Okay. So this is the concept of Wilson cloud chamber. Again, the whole working, they will not ask about the whole working to just copy paste the whole working of these detectors or the chamber. They only ask about the basic idea that how to detect the radiations or how to detect the traces of alpha, beta, or gamma. So sometimes they ask about the name. So these are two names that helps you to detect alpha, beta, or gamma radiations. And the first one, that is a GM tube. That GM tube is for detecting the radiation coming out from any radioactive particle in the form of alpha, beta, or gamma. Now again, let's practice the rest of the question from this chapter, because we added up one more topic in it. So now we are able to solve maximum questions from the past papers worksheet. So let's see the questions. Okay, start from the latest one. Okay, these questions, like you can see, in space and interstellar cloud of dust and gas, this is related to space physics, right? That's why we are not working on this question, because this type of questions are from space physics part. So we need to study nuclear and space physics. So then we are able to solve these questions. Okay. So that's why we are leaving this type of question from the worksheet. Okay. But after learning the concept of the space physics, definitely we will solve this question again. Okay. Let's try this question. It consists of graphical representation also. We have carbon 14, and carbon 14 is an isotope of carbon. It undergoes radioactive decay with half-life of 6,000 years. The age of a sample of wood is found using the carbon 14 that it contains. Describe what happens during radioactive decay. So what happens during radioactive decay? So this is the basic question related to the radioactivity. And in radioactivity, if you remember, we discussed that in radioactivity process, the mass of the element or the activity of the element, it starts to decay, and the mass of that element or that specific particle starts to decrease from their original value. Okay, or their activity starts to decrease as compared to the initial value. So this is the concept of radioactive decay, or simply radioactivity. So in answer we can say emission, random, and spontaneous emission from the nucleus often of an alpha, beta, or gamma radiation. Okay,
Sir, can you
part B.
explain it?
Basically, it is the journal radioactivity. It is not compulsory you need to write this definition. You can write the definition that we discussed in the start of the chapter like this: the phenomena of an emission of radioactive radiations from the nucleus of an atom. Okay. So you can also write this definition, radioactivity, because they are asking about the same thing. In this definition, we mention radioactive radiations. Now, we know that what are the names of the radioactive radiation. That's why we are writing the name alpha, beta, and gamma. Okay. In initially, like in the start of the chapter, we don't know about alpha, beta, and gamma. So we are writing about radioactive radiations. So the radioactive radiations are alpha, beta, and gamma. So simply, when alpha, beta, or gamma, or radioactive radiations coming out from the nucleus. So this process is called radioactive decay. Simple. Okay.
Okay, sir, got it.
Yes. Okay. Next part is definitely from the half-life. The count rate of the carbon 14 in the sample of wood is initially 1600 counts per minute. On figure 10.1, draw a graph to show how the count rate will vary over the next 24,000 years. The initial count rate is already marked with an X. So we already practiced one type of question just like the same. So one value is already marked, that is almost at 1600. So we are assuming that we are going to start from 1600. Okay. And after every 1600 counts per minute. Okay. This is the half-life given. This is the half-life and this is your target. Okay. Targeted value. So you need to count total 25,000 years, and then you need to identify after how many years, or like how long it will take to get a new value using this half-life. Okay. So we are starting from 1600, and on x-axis you can see we have 5,000, 8,000, 12, 16, 20, 24. So they are asking about the last value in the graph, that is 24,000 years. Okay. So it is very simple. First of all, if we write down some values to make it simple. So first half-life takes place at 1600 counts per minute. Okay. Okay, sorry. Half-life is 6,000 years. This is half-life. This is your initial value. Okay. Because it is count rate. So initially we are starting from 1600. This is our initial value. And half-life is of 6,000 years. So it means after first half-life, 1600 will be decreases to 800, and after second half-life, this value will be decreased to 400, right? And first half-life takes place in how many years? 6,000 years, because it is mentioned half-life of 6,000 years. So after every 6,000 years, the radiation or the particles emitting from the nucleus starts to decay into half. So this first half-life takes place in total 6,000 years. Then in next 6,000 year means 6 plus 6, 12. 12,000 years. And then if we perform another half-life, so it becomes 200. 12 plus 6, 1800, 18,000 years. And the last is fourth half-life. It becomes 100. After how many years? It will be 18 plus 6, 24. Okay. Here, any confusion? So,
So, sir, we just had to tell that that it will take four half lives to get it to for it to decay completely.
yes, because initially we observe that this element starts to decay from 1600 counts per minute. Okay. So we started from
Okay.
1600, right? This is our initial value. And according to the question, we need to reach the value of 24,000 years. This is the targeted value. Okay. So this is our targeted value. And half-life is given in the question 6,000 years. Okay. So it means after every 6,000 years, the particles starts to decay into half. Okay. So before marking the values on the graph, we make it simple. We write down the values, so it becomes very easy for us to choose the value from the graphical representation. Like we are starting from 1600. This is the initial value given in the question.
Okay, sir.
Yes, now you can follow the same values we perform in the working to get your first half-life, second half-life, third, fourth, and so on. So after 1600, it starts to decay in 800. It takes total 12,000 years. Okay. So we need to mark point on 400, sorry, 800 in 6,000 years. So this is 800. And what about 6,000 years? Where we will find this 6,000 years on x-axis.
In between 4,000 and 8,000.
Yes. So we know that values are 4,000, 8,000, 12, 16, 20. So definitely 6,000 will be in the middle of 4 and 8. 6,000. So this is the first half-life. And for the second half-life, we need to find out 400, 12,000 years. So this is 400 and 12,000 is also already marked on the table. So this is second value. Okay. And for the third value, 200 with 18,000 years. 200. Again, between 16 and 20, it is equals to 18,000. And finally, 100, 24,000 years. So between 0 and 200, we will get 100, right? So this is the whole graphical representation, and we also reach the targeted value given in the question, which is equals to 24,000 years. So in 24,000 years, this element decays to the value of 100 counts per minute. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yes. And you need to make like a freehand curved line to connect all these points because it is a radioactive decay and definitely it will be like decreasing curve. So we need to connect all the points like this. So this question is for 2 marks only, but like after practicing question for 2 or 3 times, it will be easy for you also. Okay. And the C part of this question, name the apparatus used to measure the radiation from the sample of wood and describe how it is used to measure the count rate. Okay. Just like we discuss two different detector. The first one is GM tube and the second one is Wilson cloud chamber. So in exam, they will not ask about detailed working of it. Okay. So they are asking the name of the apparatus and how to use it. Simple, not the complete detailed working of the apparatus is required in your exam questions. Okay. So you need to name the apparatus. So what is the name of the apparatus used to measure the radiations? GM tube or Wilson cloud chamber? Because in GM tube and Wilson cloud chamber, there is only one difference. In Wilson cloud chamber, we traces the pattern of radioactive emission. Plus, in GM tube, we are measuring the count rates coming out from the radioactive particles into the tube. Okay. So for this purpose, because we are counting or we are measuring the radiation from the sample of the wood, and in the previous part, we also solve or work out the graphical representation. So it will be GM tube. And in the second part, how the apparatus is used. So apparatus can be used very easily. We need to place in the front of the radioactive particle. So radiations are coming out from the radioactive particle and it can be received through the GM tube and we will get the count rate on the screen. Okay. So radiations from the radioactive material reaches the GM tube and with the help of ionization process on the screen. Okay, so in part C, you observe that how they ask questions about the radioactive detector. They will not ask about the detail working to like mention the whole process that what is going on in the GM detector or in GM tube. They only ask about the basic idea why and how we are using this tube to detect radiation. In the same way, in part D, let's suppose if like you are in the lab and you need to find out the half-life of any type of sample given to you. Just like the same sample we are talking about, describe how the count rate from a sample of wood is used to find its age. Okay. So in the first part of the question, whenever we start any question of radioactivity or the half-life, so definitely some values are given. For example, initial count rate, just like if we take example of this question, so initial count rate of sample of wood is given. So it is like 16,000 counts per minute. Okay. So definitely we need to place in front of the detector and we need to find the initial count rate. For example, you get any type of sample of radioactive material and you place that material in front of the radiation detector, and you will get the values of radiation coming out from element initially. So that is the initial count rate of that radioactive material. Secondly, we need to find out the time, that how long it will take to decay into the half value. Okay, so we are starting from 1600. So we note down the time, that how long it will take to decay to the value of the half of its original value, that is equals to 800. Okay, so we need to record that time. So when you get the recording of the time for half-life of the element, so you can easily identify that how long it will take to decay completely or to any specific value. Okay, so the first process is we are going to place, let's suppose we have any radioactive material and radiations are coming out from this radioactive material. Okay, and in front of it we have GM tube, and that GM tubes gives the value of initial count rate. So this is the first process. Second, we need to find out the time, or we need to record time duration that element decays to half of its original value. So this is the process we need to carry forward to find out any half-life of any radioactive sample that is given and that is unknown, because definitely we don't know about that element, what is the name of that element and what type of radiation it actually emits from that material. So if they ask you to find out the half-life, so first of all we need to measure the initial count rate, and then we need to record the time duration, that how long it takes to decay into the half of its original value. And definitely this time gives you the idea of the half-life. This is the half-life of the radioactive material. So this is the process we need to write down over here in part D of the question for 2 marks. Okay. They are not asking about the exact calculation, because definitely it is not possible without a practical experiment. So that's why they are only asking about general description of the count rate for a sample to find its age or its half-life. Okay.